All right, so we're diving into the global impact of reggae and dancehall music. And it's a fascinating story that goes way beyond just, catchy beats and good vibes. We're going to uncover how deeply these genres have impacted music worldwide and why their influence is often overlooked, especially by the mainstream music industry.
Yeah, it's really remarkable how these sounds have become so integral to global music culture. I mean, from Kingston to Tokyo, reggae and dancehall have provided a soundtrack for generations.
Literally everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing. While their reach is undeniable, their recognition, especially in places like the American music industry, often falls short.
It is a strange disconnect. If you take hip hop, for example, those early DJs in the Bronx spinning records on turntables, they weren't just inventing a new sound, they were drawing directly from Jamaican sound system culture, using toasting where the DJ would talk or chant over the music. That evolved directly from Jamaican DJing traditions. It's a direct lineage. Yet, how often do you see reggae and dancehall artists topping the Billboard charts? Such a good point. And you can hear those influences everywhere, even in pop music. Think about Rihanna's early hits. Her sound was infused with that infectious dancehall energy. Even Drake has incorporated those vibes into his music.
Absolutely, and it's bigger than just individual artists. Reggae and dancehall have fundamentally shaped the sonic landscape of modern music, from the driving rhythms of electronic music to the melodic sensibilities of contemporary pop. So why aren't these genres celebrated on the same level as the genres they help to shape? It's like they're essential but invisible contributors. Their influence is felt but rarely acknowledged.
And that leads us to a really crucial point: the often blurred line between cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation. On one hand, it's amazing to see artists around the world embracing the sounds of reggae and dancehall. But it gets complicated when you see those sounds being used for massive commercial success, while the originators often struggle for recognition and fair compensation.
Happens all the time, right? A pop song with a clear reggae or dancehall influence blows up, and you can't help but think, wait a minute, where have I heard this before? Where's the credit to the artists who pioneered this sound?
And it's not just about individual songs, it's about how genres are marketed and perceived. Think about those playlists filled with tropical vibes. It's often presented so generically that the specific cultural origins, the rich history, the individual stories of those sounds get completely glossed over.
It's like they want you to believe that this incredible music just magically appeared out of thin air.
And that erasure of origin, that lack of specificity, it feeds into a larger problem, which is that these genres are too often seen as trends to be capitalized on, rather than rich musical traditions with deep histories and cultural significance.
And sadly, this lack of recognition also plays into how the music industry itself often undervalues these genres. To get a better understanding of this, we spoke with some industry insiders, and their perspectives were really eye-opening.
What were some of the key takeaways from those conversations?
Well, we spoke to a reggae artist who put it very bluntly. He said that if you're not generating what the industry considers to be mainstream money, they just won't invest in you. But here's the kicker, he pointed out, that they'll take those sounds and give them to someone else, and suddenly it's a smash hit.
A perfect example of a system that often seems to reward imitation over innovation, at least when it comes to certain genres. So why aren't these incredibly talented reggae and dancehall artists seen as commercially viable in their own right?
Exactly. And we're talking about artists with incredible talent and a deep understanding of their craft. It's not a lack of talent, it's something else.
It really makes you question the structures in place and how those structures contribute to certain biases within the industry. And to dig a little deeper into that, we also spoke with a music industry executive who, while acknowledging the influence of reggae and dancehall, admitted there might be a bias within the industry itself.
Yeah, and this wasn't someone on the fringes of the industry. This was someone who, had their finger on the pulse, who understood what makes a hit. And even they admitted that genres like reggae and dancehall often don't receive the same level of label support as, say, pop or hip-hop.
Which is fascinating when you think about it. They recognize the influence, but don't necessarily invest in the source of that influence on an equal playing field. You start to wonder about the reasons behind that disconnect. Is it purely a numbers game, as some might argue? Or is there a deeper resistance to embracing certain sounds, certain rhythms in their more authentic, less diluted forms?
And if it is a numbers game, as that executive seemed to suggest, then it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? If you don't invest in marketing and promotion, if you don't give these artists the same opportunities to reach a wider audience, then of course they're not going to generate those mainstream numbers.
It's a cycle that's hard to break. It's almost as if these genres are constantly being told to stay in their lane. even though in many ways they paved the road for the very sounds that dominate the charts today.
It makes you wonder, what would the music industry, even the world of pop music, sound like today if it weren't for the influence of reggae and dancehall? And more importantly, are we as listeners even aware of these influences as we enjoy the music that surrounds us?
That's a really important question to consider because this isn't just about the music industry. This is about how cultural influence and sometimes misappropriation plays out in all aspects of our lives. It's about understanding the power dynamics at play. Who benefits, who gets left behind, and why.
It reminds me of something that happened a few years ago. I was at a music festival, and a very popular pop artist came on stage with a full band, a light show, the works. They launched into this high-energy set, and a lot of it had this undeniable dancehall vibe. Everyone was dancing, having a great time, myself included. But then I started thinking, where's the recognition for the originators of this sound? Would this artist even be on this stage playing this music if it weren't for the artists who came before, who poured their hearts and souls into creating something new and original?
It's a question we should all be asking ourselves more often. As listeners, we have a responsibility to be more mindful, to look beyond the surface, and to engage with music in a way that recognizes and respects its origins.
So how do we do that? How do we become more than just passive consumers of music, especially when it comes to genres like reggae and dancehall, which have been so influential, yet often overlooked?
It starts with awareness, with educating ourselves about the history and the cultural significance of these genres. It means actively seeking out authentic reggae and dancehall artists, listening with intention, and understanding the stories, the struggles, and the triumphs that have shaped these musical traditions.
And how do we turn that awareness into action? What are some concrete things we can do to support these artists in a meaningful way?
Well, for one, we can be more conscious of our listening habits. Like instead of just pressing play on a generic tropical vibes playlist, take some time to seek out authentic reggae and dancehall artists, explore their discographies, learn about their journeys, and discover the depth and diversity within these genres.
Support them directly.
Yeah, buy their music, go to their shows, share their work with your friends. Let them know that you value their artistry and that you're invested in seeing them succeed.
And maybe if we all make a conscious effort to do this, we can start to shift the balance, even in a small way. We can create a more equitable and inclusive musical landscape where genres like reggae and dancehall get the recognition and the respect they deserve.
It's a worthy goal, and it all starts with each of us taking responsibility for our role as listeners and as global citizens. And, as we've been discussing, this goes beyond music. These dynamics of cultural influence, appropriation, and appreciation, they're everywhere. They're in the clothes, we wear the food, we eat the books, we read the movies we watch.
It's about recognizing that inspiration can easily slip into exploitation if we're not careful.
Exactly. So as you move through the world, I encourage you to be mindful of these dynamics. Ask yourself, who's benefiting from this exchange of ideas? Are certain voices being amplified at the expense of others? And most importantly, what can you do in your own way to contribute to a more just and equitable cultural landscape?
Because ultimately, this isn't just about music. It's about recognizing the value of cultural diversity in all its forms.
It's about honoring the stories, the traditions, and the creative expressions of people from all walks of life. It's about recognizing that culture isn't a commodity to be bought and sold. It's a living, breathing tapestry woven from the threads of countless individual journeys.
So the next time you find yourself captivated by a song, a piece of art, a film, or any form of creative expression, take a moment to consider its origins. Dig a little deeper. Ask some questions. You might be surprised by what you discover, and you might even find yourself inspired to make a difference.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Opening ourselves up to new possibilities, expanding our understanding of the world, and using our voices to amplify those who have been silenced for far too long.
This has been a really insightful conversation. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the global impact of reggae and dancehall music. We hope this has inspired you to not only appreciate these incredible genres, but to actively support the artists who bring them to life.
Absolutely. And remember, music is just the beginning. Let's all do our part to create a more just and equitable world where every voice can be heard.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep listening, and keep the music alive.